Japan is truly a land of contradictions. The people are cute and small, but at the same time, they're descendants of samurai and sumo champions. They import almost all of their food, but they export seafood to the entire world. Their natural resources are really scarce, but they're one of the richest countries on Earth. And here's the kicker. Japan, by law, doesn't have a standing military. But despite that, they have protection forces that rival some of the world's strongest armies. Before we jump into the rest, quick reminder, only 3% of our viewers are subscribed right now. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, so you never miss out on future videos. Let's dive back in. Japan is an archipelago of isolated islands in the Pacific Ocean, near the eastern coast of Asia. Even though Japan is made up of around 7,000 islands, only 4 of them have the majority of the population. Those 4 islands alone make up about 89% of Japan's total land area. Most of the country is mountainous and rugged, and the valleys, plains, and livable or farmable areas only make up about 20% of the total land. Japan's total area is roughly 378,000 square kilometers, making it a relatively small country. Japan is located in the Ring of Fire, one of the most dangerous regions on the planet. This area is responsible for 90% of the world's earthquakes and over 75% of its volcanoes. These harsh conditions, combined with Japan's difficult geography, played a huge role in shaping a resilient and fearless population. Natural defense. Japan's location also provided a natural defense from invaders. It's surrounded by natural barriers that would make any army, especially in ancient times, think twice before attempting to cross the ocean to invade the islands. And if an army did manage to attempt it, they'd be met by highly trained warriors ready to face any danger. And even if they won, there wasn't much to gain. As we said, most of Japan is mountainous and resource poor. That's why the few historical attempts to invade Japan all ended in failure. Even the Mongols, who conquered almost the entire world at their peak, couldn't achieve significant victories in Japan. In fact, it was Japan who invaded its neighbors, not the other way around. Generation after generation, the Japanese absorbed a culture of combat and superiority. At the same time, the emperor was seen as a figure almost akin to a god. Japan's expansion. As Japan advanced in weaponry and built up its navy, they began to conquer their neighbors. It all started with the occupation of the Korean peninsula in 1910. After Korea, any unprotected or poorly defended island was quickly taken over by Japan. And after these successful conquests, Japan set its sights on the Mongols, the descendants of Genghis Khan, and even raided territories belonging to the Russian Empire. With Japan's rapid expansion, the League of Nations objected to its imperial actions. Japan's response: they simply withdrew from the League. In 1931, Japan occupied China's Manchuria region. When World War II started in 1939, Japan resumed its expansion, this time targeting Hong Kong and more parts of China, along with Burma, parts of Thailand, and the Philippines. Their conquests stretched all the way to the borders of Australia. But they faced strong resistance from the Australian Army, which was backed by the British Empire and India. This delayed Japan's military campaigns, but they weren't too concerned. They were already thinking about reorganizing before expanding again. Things took a turn when the Vichy French government allowed Japan to use their military bases in Asia. This posed a huge threat to American territories in the Philippines. In response, the US issued a warning to Japan and even cut off oil exports. Japan knew their oil reserves were running low, so they decided to seize the oil fields in Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. The attack on Pearl Harbor. Japan decided to launch an attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor. At the same time, another group of Japanese forces was tasked with distracting the British front to prevent them from intervening, while the rest of the troops focused on seizing oil-rich colonies. The operation, named Operation Octopus, aimed to spread Japan's military like the tentacles of an octopus, striking multiple targets simultaneously. On December 7, 1941, the operation began, with Japan's navy attacking across several sectors. Although this successful attack was planned by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the commander of the Japanese Navy, he was against it. Yamamoto believed that while Japan could achieve its initial objectives in the first few months, they wouldn't be able to sustain their victories due to a lack of strategic and logistical resources. But, as expected, he followed orders. After the devastating blow to Pearl Harbor, the United States quickly recovered from its early losses and launched a counterattack. At that time, America wasn't considered a top military power, but it was a scientific and economic giant. When it needed to build up its military, it did so rapidly, in stark contrast to Japan, which relied on the bravery and strength of its soldiers without investing in research or technology. The US capitalized on its technological superiority to wage war against Japan. One of the earliest surprises for Japan was the US's ability to break their code, tracking every Japanese move while launching surprise attacks of their own. American aircraft were far superior to Japan's, and bravery alone wasn't enough to stop the US advance. As a result, the US forces continued liberating islands across the Pacific until they brought the battle to Japan's doorstep. Despite all the pressure, the Japanese refused to surrender. In May 1945, a major turning point occurred when Nazi Germany surrendered, leaving Japan to fight alone. On August 6, 1945, US President Truman authorized the use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. After witnessing the bomb's catastrophic effects, Japan received an ultimatum to surrender unconditionally or face another attack. Still, Japan refused. On August 9th, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. Despite the devastation caused by the two bombs and continuous US threats, Japan didn't surrender until the US promised to allow the emperor to remain in power. This agreement was signed on August 15, 1945, and Japan's official surrender took place on September 9th of that year. Interestingly, the emperor himself pushed for surrender, while much of the Japanese population wasn't happy about ending the war. Some groups even rebelled against the emperor, continuing to fight despite the official end of the conflict. Post-war Japan, the economic miracle. After the war, Japan shifted its focus from military strength to science and technology. The Japanese poured their energy and determination into rebuilding and innovation. With help from the US, Japan's students eventually outperformed their American teachers in every field of study. As time went on, the world started to trust Japan's new mindset, and Japan was allowed to develop self-defense forces. These forces, known as the Japan Self-Defense Forces, eventually grew into one of the most powerful defensive armies in the world. Today, Japan's military strength is ranked 5th globally, according to Global Firepower. And that's it. If you made it to the end, you're truly one of our best viewers. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all our future content. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. See you in the next video.